Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers on the broadcast today. After the second special session, Assemblywoman Jill Tolles joins us for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're always pleased to welcome back to the program Assemblywoman Jill Tolles, Republican of District 25. Pleasure to have you back here. It's after the second special session, and you put out a missive, and I'm just going to read one paragraph from near the top of it. And you said, what we have today is a lack of balance in our state, and what we saw in this past legislative special session is what happens when one party rules both houses and the executive branch. Please elaborate.
Well, first of all, thank you, Sam, for having me on the show. It's always great to be here, and I've appreciated our conversations pre-special sessions and now post-special sessions. And I actually went back and watched our interview before these special sessions, and we talked a lot about the importance of everybody coming to the table in the midst of a crisis and deliberatively working through the issues so that we have better outcomes. And as you read in my newsletter, I was frustrated that after these last two special sessions, we did not see that. We did not see a collaborative process. We did not see a transparent process that really solicited the input of the public and of all the stakeholders and the decisions that we were making. And I do think that that speaks to, as much as we can communicate through things and do the best we can to collaborate, without cooperation from all sides working together, at the end of the day, it's the people of Nevada that we're doing a disservice to.
Well, it seemed like there was almost, no entry point for lobbyists or members of the public to really make their points known. Midnight sessions, post-midnight sessions. I mean, in a session that a lot of people have said wasn't even really necessary.
Yeah.
And that this could have all waited until we got to the regular session in February.
Well, we certainly needed to have the budget conversation, without a doubt. We were facing a $1.3 billion shortfall.
Right,
so we had to address that.
I guess I'm really talking about the second special session more than the first.
Right, and then that second special session, it was good that we dealt with liability, although somewhat of a mangled process in the end in regards to the liability issue. We needed to address that. As something I've been a proponent of for months now. And it was good that we did some things for Dieter, not nearly enough to address that unemployment insurance system backlog, but we made some steps in the right direction there. But there were many other things that should have and could have waited until a full session so that we have those 120 days to bring all the stakeholders together to make sure that we are really hearing from our constituents. I am passionate about the institution and I'm passionate about the process. And what good process looks like is you spend a lot of time researching an issue. You take a look at examples from other states. You meet with all the stakeholders that are going to be impacted by that particular proposal. You debate the pros and cons and you work it out. We're not supposed to all agree. In fact, disagreement is baked into the process for good reason. With good debate comes better outcomes, gets us to truth, gets us to better policy. And you have a process that's stretched out over a period of time so that you can vet it and in the end get to the best outcome for the people. And that's why we save a lot of those meaty policy discussions for a regular special session. You know, and I've told this story so many times, but my first time in the building was 10 years ago as a citizen. I'll never forget walking in the front door, meeting the legislative police and asking, okay, how does this work? What do I do? And he said something brilliant. He said, this is your house. This is the people's building. Your taxpayer dollars pay for it. Get to know your representatives, sit in on the meetings, speak up in public comment. And I reached out to my representatives and they answered the phone. And I thought, what kind of state do we live in? This is amazing access to our legislature. And what saddened me the most in these last two special sessions was that by and large felt like we lost so much of that. Now, COVID, of course, we had to take some precautions there. I can't praise our Legislative Council Bureau staff enough for everything they did to make sure that we stayed infection-free and we were safe and all that. So I understand some of those limitations for the public and for lobbyists, but what I don't understand is why we had so many hearings in the middle of the night. Why public comment was pushed out till midnight in the middle of a week for working parents and families and industry representatives. That's not a good process.
But it's great political process if you're trying to accomplish a political goal prior to the November election.
Right, but back to my point about balance in government, when you have the power in the executive branch and you have the majorities in both houses, how much power is enough? And at what point is that really good for the people? When we have balance, when we have maybe a majority in one house and a majority in the other house, and then we have a different balance in the executive branch, it forces people to come to the table to again get that better outcome, and we're lacking that right now.
Well, you know, I think something I've been thinking about recently is, you know, first of all, doesn't matter what party you're in, you're not going to stay in power forever. Things are going to change. The balance of power is going to swing to the other side or to a third side if someone emerges. But if you look at what happened to the Democrats in Congress, Senator Reid pushed through the nuclear option to be able to get judges passed through the Senate. But the Democrats are paying the price now when the Trump administration is rushing through as many judicial positions as possible because they have the power now. Mm-hmm. So just because you use, or as some would say, abuse power, it's going to come back to bite you down the road because things are not going to stay the same forever.
And back to the point about where the power should reside, the power in our democratic system should really reside with the people. It's the people that put people into office, and it's the people whose voices matter so much. And it's one of the things that I have been a cheerleader of, a proponent for, how much I've loved our institution in this state, how we've managed to keep DC national politics out. And I do really, truly hope we get that balance back and that this was an anomaly, and that what we see in the next regular session and what we see moving forward is power to the people, power to the process, and better results better outcomes as a result.
I think that's a really wonderful idea. Mm-hmm. The reality of that, I think, may be somewhat different. Let's take a break. We'll come back more with Jill Tolles after this timeout.
Because of UMC, there's a wide open road ahead of me.
Because of UMC, she can grow up with her twin sister.
Because of UMC, I'm here to help you.
UMC, the highest level of care in Nevada. The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Assemblywoman Jill Tolles. So you brought up liability issues. The schools and hospitals, with the exception of UMC, were taken out of that. Right. What were your thoughts on that?
Well,
and concerns?
Absolutely. I've been studying this liability issue for several months now, ever since Utah had a great bill. It was so simple. It was, I think, 50 lines. Fit on one page, and it was beautiful. It was, if you're following the guidelines, you're taking the safety precautions, then you should, apart from gross negligence, be immune from frivolous lawsuits against you. You know, we've looked at all these small businesses, these bars, these restaurants, these retail shops that have been maxing out their credit cards to stay alive, to keep on a handful of employees, or had their employees go on to unemployment insurance and then bring them back. We have businesses that have taken tremendous sacrifices through COVID to help flatten the curve. Nothing worse than them reopening and then suddenly being shut back down again because of expensive lawsuits that put them under forever. So I'm a fan of both the protections for those businesses, those establishments, and also protections for workers, because we do need to make sure that they're coming to a safe environment to work. If it's good enough for businesses, why isn't it good enough across the board? And so as I studied this, I looked at, just for example, 16 states that, in addition to civil liability protections for businesses, had also extended it explicitly for healthcare. And what was fascinating to me was it was straight down the middle. Democrat states, Republican states, this is a bipartisan issue. And so why not include that across the board? And then a last minute move to amend out schools, K through 12 schools, was just so puzzling to me and so many others. Again, why can't we just have this across the board? You provide a safe place to work, a safe place to go shop, a safe place to eat, then you should be able to be free from frivolous lawsuits. And we also provide a safe place for our customers, our students, and our employees.
Okay, but I mean, doesn't this just, again, point to the power of the trial lawyers?
So there was a lot of backroom negotiations, and that was highlighted even in the hearings when there was no good policy reason for keeping out hospitals, healthcare, and schools. And one of the frustrations that I had back to the process was I kept bringing up, why aren't we bringing in all across the board? And the answer that I kept getting was, well, the powers that be, the powers that be, the powers that be. It's non-negotiable. That's out. It's not getting back in. And at one point, I just said, we are the powers that be. We are elected to have the power to make these decisions. I don't know who these powers that be are that are existing out there. You mentioned a very good possible culprit.
I can give you a big list.
Right. But we're the powers that be. That's why we're elected to be there. So let's do the right thing. Let's put the right policies in place for all Nevadans across the state. And so, it was important to clarify, and once we realized that there was no way that they were going to take the K through 12 schools out, or healthcare wasn't going to get included back in, it was important to clarify on the record that schools can reopen safely. They have. My daughter sent her off to school yesterday. She had a wonderful first day back at school. Grateful that they decided to do the hybrid model and stick with that. those schools are still protected under Chapter 41 protections, the same protections that they were when they made the decisions to go back to the hybrid model. We do still have medical malpractice protections in place for hospitals and healthcare, but by singling them out and carving them out, it just creates a sense of a target on their backs and concern for why can't we do this across the board.
Okay, so I mean, is your bigger concern, especially with education, well, actually with both education and healthcare, that if you start seeing major liability lawsuits being won, that the cost of education, which has already taken so many hits, and the cost of medical care is just going to go through the roof?
Absolutely. So you see the potential for a rise in costs, which healthcare is struggling right now. I mean, that was kind of the crazy unintended consequence of these shutdowns and these restrictions, was when you take away elective surgeries, it ends up really hurting the finances of our healthcare industry, and we need them now more than ever. And then when it comes to K through 12, the concern there is, will they now be tentative about staying open and making sure they can do so safely, but will they be tentative about staying open because they're worried about the lawsuits and those precious dollars being taken away into the courts? And so the difficult part there is that you might end up with people shutting down, people not doing elective surgeries anymore. It's much harder to get in to school, to get in to see your doctor, because they're going to be more concerned about covering themselves as a result. And when I talk to some board members and members in the district about their concerns with the liability issues, they have to counter the fact that they're also potentially facing liability issues with parents of kids with autism who aren't getting the services that they need.
Well, and they really got shafted.
Absolutely got shafted. And so, so going back into that environment and realizing that we might be cutting healthcare services, and we might be cutting critical educational services to the kids who need it the most, for safety, for development, for their academic progress. And so those are my concerns. And
then, you had the Culinary Union and the Nevada Resort Association coming together, normally two rivals, but agreeing on the situation. So does that make you more comfortable that we're not likely to see a gaming shutdown unless there is really a horrendous surge in coronavirus?
So I'm grateful for that collaboration. That's the kind of collaboration that we need, is the different stakeholders coming together and working out agreements. My concern about what we saw in this last process was that collaboration wasn't mimicked across the board and available to all. But yes, because they did spend so much time working through those details, I'm hopeful that we've set up the environment that we can keep those businesses open, because Sam, we cannot shut down again. We cannot go through a round of deep cuts to the tune of 25% of our budget. We don't have the ability to continue to function as a state if we keep going back to shutting down our businesses and cutting off those revenue streams.
All right, let's take another break. More with Jill Tolles after this timeout.
Dimitri Prine here for Design Outdoor. Are you a homeowner who's interested in remodeling or building a home? At Design Outdoor, we can show you how adding natural or manufactured masonry stone can add beauty and value to your home. And we refer only the best contractors. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
Hey guys, are you watching the game at a friend's or the bar again because you can't watch at home with your wife? Or worse, because she kicked you out and kept your couch, your flat screen, and your kids? What's the one thing a man needs when he loses a good woman? A good lawyer. And when he loses a bad woman, he needs a great lawyer. What makes a good woman a bad woman? You tell me. You're the one that can't watch the game in your own home. I'm men's rights attorney Marilyn York, and I represent men in divorce, custody, and family law matters.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. And a lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take an Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Assemblywoman Jill Tolles. I've been getting a lot of calls and emails from people who are saying that OSHA is a little out of control right now, that they are going around to all kinds of businesses. The fines on companies like Walmart have been quite large, but to smaller businesses, they started out with warnings, but fines are definitely in the cards. At a time when business is so fragile and people are doing their best to open up, is this what we need in the state?
So it is important that we all take personal responsibility to help with stopping the spread of this virus. It is still there and it's not going away anytime soon. All hopes that it was going to disappear magically over summer didn't happen. And if we do see another rapid increase in spread, and that does lead to more fatalities, and that leads to another potential shutdown. So we all need to do our part to make sure that we're following the guidelines as best we can. That being said, you're right, our businesses have struggled. They are absolutely on board. The businesses that I'm talking to are doing an unbelievable job of cleaning, sanitizing, putting masks on, making sure that they're keeping their customers compliant, which is a bit of an awkward conversation when you're greeting them as they come in. But I've had business owners tell me, man, I got a visit and thankfully we were all good, but then they were probing for, can you rat out your friends?
Seriously?
Yeah. No. Can you? Do you know anyone else who's not following? Can you keep an eye out? And here's my cell phone. Call us and everything like that. And it gets to a point where it's no longer about us all taking responsibility and doing our part to help stop the spread. It becomes more about this gotcha system and how do you turn your friend in down the street and penalize and so forth. And I think that we've come a long way in really taking this seriously. We're seeing that in the drop in the infections rates, that people are doing a better job really following the guidelines, and we're seeing that they're responding to the education that the health department and the state epidemiologists have done. We need to keep that up, but this environment where we're coming down so hard, asking people to rat out on their friends down the street and so forth, is not really the right way to go. It's a little bit more the stick, a little bit less the carrot.
Well, if somebody was courageous enough to want to come forward, we would certainly have a place for them in this program to discuss this. We've got about 2 minutes here, so let's talk about the mining tax. During the Gibbons, prior to the Gibbons administration, we passed the 2/3 Gibbons tax initiatives that you had to have 2/3 majority in both houses to be able to raise taxes. Now it's you won't be able to cut taxes without 2/3 in each house, and a gross tax on mining rather than a net tax. Briefly, your thoughts on this?
Well, I'd like to take us back to before the special sessions to remind everyone that we had the governor and majority leadership say at various points that we would not be having tax discussions in the special sessions. And even up until the morning of the first mining tax that was presented, we were being told there's going to be no surprise tax increases, there's going to be no tax bills, we're not having those discussions. And we got not just one in the first special session, but 2, 3, 4 tax proposals in these 2 special sessions. I felt like at the end of the day I should have gotten a free set of Ginsu knives as a result. Not just 1, not just 2, 3, 4. And the problem was that they're very, very complex proposals, the deductions was incredibly complex, has ramifications on health benefits packages and on ancillary businesses and on the calculations and on long-term development that these mines often take 20 years to develop, and investment in our state and high-paying jobs. But then in the second special session, there were 3 resolutions. So we have a menu of options to choose from that take us from net to gross, which is a significant move. And then to your 2/3 point, a crazy proposal in the midst of it that we're supposed to, it's only take a simple majority to raise that tax, but 2/3 to lower it, which has a lot of constitutionality questions, and then a third proposal that still keeps it with the net rate, but it moves it from 5% to 12%. When have you ever seen those kinds of proposals being put, again, in the middle of the night, very last minute, with not a lot of stakeholder discussion about the impacts that would have on our rural communities and ancillary businesses, and whether or not it would be used in the way that it's intended to be used. And I have to credit the mining, our mining industry, because they came to the table with prepayment of their taxes to help us to meet our budget shortfall. They even have said they're willing to come to the table to take a look at revenues. So meet with them and have those discussions ahead of time and come to an agreement with the entire business community. But to throw 4 different proposals last minute with such large increases and no real vetting of the process was just the wrong way to go about it.
And that's where we have to leave it. Jill Tolles, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Come back soon.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Brian Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Brian's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Brian today. Brian Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Miner, and I'm sure you'd agree that Nevada's a very special place to live. I was born here, and my husband and I have raised our family here. I feel it's a privilege to live and work in the Truckee Meadows. I especially enjoy helping my clients reach their real estate goals. Sometimes the smallest details provide the greatest satisfaction. I'd be complimented to talk to you about your next move.
Call Marilyn Miner at Dixon Realty, 742-1280, or log on to marilynminer.com.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
You can now watch Nevada Newsmakers on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for Nevada Newsmakers and become a subscriber. We'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks for watching and listening.